Deadlock's item system can be complicated. I'm sure you've bought an item before and wondered, did this item actually do anything? That's exactly the feeling I want to explore in this video. When you open up the shop and browse the popular builds, such as the Sexy Vindicta feat build, you will often see an optional category, or even multiple. This video will focus primarily on misunderstood items in this category. For each item, I will go through its mechanics in depth, explain what is misunderstood about it, and finally tell you which situations you should buy this item in. Our first item today is Spirit Rend. You've probably seen this item before in builds, but rarely seen it in actual games. Let's start by looking at the stats. It builds off of Spirit Shredder bullets and carries over its innate effect of reducing the spirit resist of the target you are shooting by 8%, as well as granting you and your allies 10% lifesteal against the enemy. That's probably the first thing that often gets overlooked. All of your allies get the spirit lifesteal against the target, not just you. Then there's the headshot component. Landing headshot reduces the target's spirit resistance by a further 7% per headshot. This effect has a 2-second cooldown and a maximum of 4 stacks. Now here's the first fun part. Resistances and resistance reduction generally stack diminishingly in this game, meaning Spirit Rend would not give you full value at max stacks. However, since it is considered the same effect, there is no diminishing reduction in this case, meaning at max stacks, Spirit Rend reduces the enemy's spirit resistance by a whole 34%. This does still seem to stack diminishingly with the original 8% from Spirit Shredder bullets, but it's still more offensive value than Spirit Resilience gives you defensively. Now, that's balanced by the fact that you need to build up stacks, and it takes 6 seconds to reach max stacks. You get the first stack instantly on your first headshot. But what if I told you it's actually possible to reach max stacks instantly? If you and 3 teammates have Spirit Rend and you all headshot the same target, it will instantly reach the maximum amount of stacks, despite the Spirit Rend UI not showing it. That already sounds insane enough, and yet there's another reason why this item is hugely undervalued. To understand this, we need to look at what damage dealt in Deadlock games actually looks like. On the screen is a graph of the damage dealt in Eternus Deadlock games. Now this was before the rank rework, so the data is slightly outdated, but I doubt much has changed. On average, when the game goes past 20 minutes, almost 70% of all damage dealt is spirit. I suspect that in lower ranks, this percentage is even higher. Spirit Rend provides the highest value for spirit resist reduction in the entire game at a maximum of minus 34%, and there's nothing that's even close to it. So, it gives the highest spirit resist reduction in the entire game, and 70% of your team's damage is likely to be spirit, and it provides you and all of your allies with spirit lifesteal on the target, and on top of that, you can reach max stacks instantly if multiple people have it and land their headshots. I don't think I need to say anything more to convince you guys to buy this item a little bit more in your games. I'd like to take a quick break from the video to talk about something that we all have in common. Chairs. I'm pretty sure that most of you watching this video have a chair. I also have one, and you probably sit on it at least 8 hours a day, if not more. Having a good chair is extremely important because of how much time we spend on it, and if you have bad posture and bad ergonomics, that's going to be with you for the rest of your life. FlexiSpot reached out to me some months ago to sponsor me with the C7 Max chair, and I've been using it ever since, and I've been loving it. Some of my favorite things about the chair are how customizable it is to your body, starting with the headrest, which is fully customizable, and honestly, my favorite part about the headrest is I don't even use it, and you can remove it extremely easily. The backrest can be fully customized to your height. The armrests are also fully customizable, and they have a really, really satisfying click when you move them. You can basically move them 360, get them to the exact height that you need, which is awesome because I really need it to be at the same height so that I can aim properly with my mouse, so I'm very picky about it. And the lumbar support adjusts to your body naturally. You don't need any adjustments to it. It'll just adjust to your body weight as you sit down on the chair. Considering it's FlexiSpot's 10th anniversary day sale, there's up to 65% off items on the website. You can also get an extra $50 off of the C7 Max, which is the chair that I'm using, with the code C750. Check out the sale to get your own ergonomic chair and upgrade your work and gaming space. Thank you to FlexiSpot once again for sponsoring this video. Let's get back to it. On to our next item, Heroic Aura. Now, Heroic Aura is an item that is both underrated and overrated at the same time. It has 2 major components, its passive aura, as well as its active movement speed and fire rate buff. Now, the aura is pretty simple. It just gives bullet resistance to nearby friendly units. The exact radius is 35 meters, which is a little bit bigger than the rift area. The active, however, has an interesting component. Minions get double value. Now, from testing, minions do include summons like Grave Skulls, Ghouls, and McGinnis's turrets. They also include troopers and of course, Rift Troopers as well. Now let's start with why the item is underrated. It gives a bullet resistance aura to everyone nearby, which is of similar value to Battle Vest. This can theoretically add up to 9,600 souls worth of value from that stat alone, assuming it's comparable to a 1,600 soul defensive item. That's a ton of value, and that's not even counting its other stats. Now, I believe that this item shines in the first Rift fights. If you buy Heroic Aura, you should aim to get it around the 12-minute mark and participate in the Rift fight, particularly if you are behind. Let me illustrate why. First of all, in order to get maximum value from the item, you want as many teammates with you as possible. The Rift tends to be the place where that happens most, but that's not the only reason. Did you know that in the current meta, gun damage is actually at its highest in the early game? So Heroic Aura's defensive stat matters more early, where gun damage is a higher percentage of the total damage dealt. On top of that, the final reason is that the Rift troopers from the first Rift are actually really hard to deal with after they were buffed a few weeks ago. And if your team was behind, they will easily take the Walker if you just use Heroic Aura's active when they get there. The Walker will literally die in a few seconds, especially if you have a bunch of Rift troopers because it was a comeback Rift for your team. That all sounds amazing, so why would it be overrated at all? Well, I think only a small minority of people actually overrate it, but it's important to remember that gun damage in general is only a fraction of all damage dealt in deadlock games, especially as the game gets later in the game. It can be overrated for the same reason that bullet resilience is not a very good item. Bullet resistance just is not that great of a stat in general, especially later. Now, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't buy Heroic Aura, but if you're buying Heroic Aura primarily as a defensive layer, especially past 20 minutes, it's probably not going to be that effective. Let's talk about another weapon item, Silencer. Silencer gives 12% spirit resistance as part of its base stats, and it has two passive effects, and they both function independently of each other. Now, most people know about the build-up effect, which silences the target and also reduces its spirit damage output by 25%. Wait. Actually, that's not exactly right. The spirit damage reduction happens on the first bullet, no matter how far you are. So even if you shoot a bullet across the entire map and it hits them, it will reduce their spirit damage output by 25% instantly, and it does not require any buildup. Only the silence part does. Now, Silencer is probably one of the most misunderstood items in the entire game, and for good reason. It has no visual indicator on the spirit damage reduction aspect of it that I was able to find. When you shoot someone with Silencer, the debuff icon appears over them, and that debuff icon only represents the silence portion. So it kind of leads you to believe a lot of the time that you're not actually applying the minus 25% spirit damage reduction, even though you are. And obviously, looking at the previous graphs that we've seen in this video, I don't think you guys need me to tell you once again how powerful reducing 25% of spirit damage is, given that 70+% of damage in deadlock games is spirit. But in case that still doesn't sell you, don't forget that you're getting a hefty 12% spirit resistance on a gun item. There's only one other gun item in the shop that provides spirit resist, and that is Blood Tribute, only giving you 8%. And then on top of all of that, you've got the silence aspect, which is just the cherry on top and is extremely effective against specific heroes, for example, like Pocket or Mina. I would essentially view Silencer as a slightly weaker but much easier to apply inhibitor against spirit heroes. And considering that it has the silence aspect, it's not actually weaker, it just doesn't reduce their damage by as much as inhibitor would. Speaking of spirit, let's talk about Spirit Sap for a second. Now, Spirit Sap only has one base stat, which gives you 50 health points, which is not much, but it's better than nothing. Spirit Sap's strength is entirely focused in its active effect, which reduces the target's spirit resistance by 9%, and it also reduces their overall spirit power by 30 for a total duration of 12 seconds. It has an 18-second cooldown, meaning that the item's uptime is around 66%, provided you maintain vision of the target. Now, most people don't know this part, but spirit values can actually go into the negatives. So if you buy Spirit Sap very early, you can completely nullify certain heroes' ability to do damage in the laning stage. For example, if Infernus is spirit sapped at 1600 souls, his Afterburn might only do around 10 damage per second to you, because the spirit scaling of Afterburn is actively taking away damage since his spirit value is in negatives. Spirit Sap is an incredibly strong laning answer to high spirit damage heroes, and the better their scaling is on an ability, the more effective Spirit Sap is. The item reduces spirit power by 30 just for 1600 souls, and obtaining 30 spirit is much more expensive. Improved spirit costs 1600 souls and only gives you 18, although that does not account for the shop investment bonus. Even accounting for the shop investment bonus, which is plus 11 at 1600 souls, Spirit Sap still takes away more spirit than one can obtain by buying improved spirit, completely nullifying the item and reducing the target spirit resistance on top of that. Next time you're going against a laner that does a lot of spirit damage, don't forget this item because it could completely change your lane. Now let's talk about a spirit item that is actually a gun item, Mercurial Magnum. Mercurial Magnum gives you bonus spirit damage on the ability you imbue on, since it upgrades from Quicksilver Reload. And after you use said ability, your bullets also deals bonus spirit damage until you reload. There is no duration on the item, so if you never reload, the effect actually lasts forever. Additionally, Mercurial Magnum is a charge up item, meaning cooldown reduction does not affect it in any way, and it deals more damage as it charges up, dealing its maximum damage after 14 seconds of not using it. However, this charge up mechanic does not affect the bonus spirit damage on bullets. It only affects the bonus spirit damage on the imbued ability. This means if you use Mercurial Magnum every 2 seconds, you will still get the full benefit on the bonus spirit damage on your bullets. The amount of bonus spirit damage you get on your bullets is a percentage of your base bullet damage. This percentage scales with spirit power. Generally, people misunderstand which heroes Mercurial Magnum is good on, so I want to discuss the appropriate use cases for this item. Since this item gives you additional damage as a percentage of your base bullet damage, you might think it's best on the heroes with the highest base bullet damage, but that would be slightly inaccurate. Paige has the highest base bullet damage in the entire game, but that doesn't mean that it's more effective on her than on a hero like Viper. Really, what you care about is the base bullet damage multiplied by the base fire rate of the character, otherwise known as a DPS. You can obtain this on the hero comparison table from the Deadlock Wiki. At max boons, the highest DPS heroes are Viper, McGinnis, Calico, Venator, Vindicta, and so on. The heroes at the top of this list are, in theory, excellent candidates for buying Mercurial Magnum. Now, on the opposite end of the spectrum is Graves, with the lowest DPS in the game at max boons. She will generally not be a good Mercurial Magnum buyer. Now, since Mercurial Magnum scales effectively off of base DPS, what can base DPS be modified by? Well, there's really only one thing, which is boons. As you level up, your DPS goes higher, making Mercurial Magnum better as the game goes later. However, there are 3 additional aspects to consider. How much spirit your hero buys, does your hero like additional fire rate, and does your hero have a way to further amplify the spirit damage given by Mercurial Magnum? For example, let's take Celeste. At max boons, she is bottom 5 character in terms of gun DPS. So she should be a terrible Mercurial Magnum buyer, right? Well, sort of. She likes to build a lot of spirit, the fire rate is really good on her, and her Radiant Daggers amplify all of her spirit damage, which also works on Mercurial Magnum, so it can work on her. She also likes the reload, and she has Spirit Lifesteal baked into her kit, which makes her benefit from it even more. So whether Mercurial Magnum is worth it on your hero or not, I will leave it up to you to test. But it was important for me to establish the primary criteria for considering this item in builds. Now let's talk about an item that doesn't get talked about too much, Transcendent Cooldown. Transcendent Cooldown is the tier 4 upgrade to Superior Cooldown. For an additional 3,200 souls, you get 5% more cooldown reduction, but the primary attribute people buy the item for is the fact that it also gives you 25% item cooldown reduction. This cooldown reduction applies to every single item except charge up items, which are Quicksilver Reload, Tank Buster, and Mercurial Magnum. As far as stats goes, it gives you 4 out of combat regen, which might as well be nothing for a 6,400 soul item. A lot of people seem to forget that the cooldown reduction on items also works for intervals. For example, usually Siphon Bullets can only activate every 1.2 seconds, but with Transcendent Cooldown, it's every 0.9 seconds. The same goes for Capacitor, Escalating Exposure, Spirit Rend, all the barrier items, etc. It doesn't just work on active items. I'll often have one active item and I'll buy Transcendent Cooldown, and then people are going to ask me what the hell I'm buying Transcendent Cooldown for. Very often it's just Siphon Bullets since I've been playing a ton of Gunlash lately, but the most important thing for you guys to remember from this is don't just consider the active items that you have, also consider all the items that you have that have a passive effect that can be reduced by this item. I want to talk about an item that I don't see too often, Weakening Headshot. Weakening Headshot is a weapon item which gives 60 bonus health, and it has a passive effect that reduces the bullet resistance of the target you headshot. The bullet resistance reduction is 13% and it lasts for 12 seconds. It's important to note that since late May, the item also works on NPCs, which include all of the jungle neutrals and guardians for some reason. Now do note that the base guardians are not affected as they do not have a headshot hitbox. Now when you're farming neutrals, one of the biggest hurdles to your damage is their high resistance to both bullet and spirit damage. Small and medium neutrals have 50% bullet resistance and large neutrals have 60%. This makes bullet resist shred one of the most valuable stats for farming, and Weakening Headshot is the best source of it for 1600 souls. Bullet resist shredder, its spirit equivalent, only reduces the resistance by 10% instead of 13%. Considering that farming tends to be an important part of any hero that deals gun damage, this item should definitely be considered in your rotation if your hero outputs actual gun damage like Venator, for example. It's also one of the most effective items at pushing the tower early, since reducing reducing its resistance is extremely effective at increasing the damage a tower takes. You can combine it with monster rounds for the most mathematically efficient tower pushing items in the laning stage. I'm sure that there's many more items that are misunderstood by the community, and I'd love to touch on them. If you guys have any item that wasn't talked about in this video that you feel like everybody just misunderstands or doesn't use properly, please put it in the comments and maybe I'll do another one of these in the future. Thank you guys for watching and thanks for the support, and as always, I wish you guys a wonderful day.